Hello, this is My Randomology, and today I'm probably going to share a little too much. So, we are starting a brand new thing for the channel. I know it's only been a few videos in, but this is going to be the first Memory Lane Monday, or Memory Monday, or something like that. Basically, on Mondays, I'm going to look back at movies that I've already seen, but I haven't seen in a very long time. These could be just things from either my childhood or things that have shaped, influenced the way that I do my own art in some way or another. And for some reason, I just haven't seen them in a few years. So today we're going to start. I figured if we're going to start with a movie that has influenced me in some way, I can't not begin with Halloween, the original Halloween. Growing up, right after my family moved to the US, I was exposed to a lot of books and literature. My teachers really pushed that on me. So one of the first horror stories, probably the first horror story that I ever read was the Headless Horseman, Ichabod Crane. It scared me. I was also 9, but it really scared me. And then from there, I started picking out other books that I found at the library. I got to read a little bit of Edgar Allan Poe that my teachers kind of pointed me to. I think I read Dracula when I was 10 or so, and I was obsessed with Goosebumps. R.L. Stine was this mythical creature that created all these stories with these weird covers that my friends and I just could not wait for the next one to come out. And if there was one that we hadn't read yet, we just traded them back and forth. So that was kind of my introduction to horror, but I wasn't really interested in horror movies. I had this idea of them being just, I don't know, either dumb or really bloody, and at the time that was something that I didn't want to see. I really had a big aversion to gore when I was younger, and I'm not entirely sure how old I was when I actually first caught this movie. It was either on Sci-Fi Channel, maybe it was going to be on TNT. I don't know if it was like Monster Vision with Joe Bob Briggs. I don't know if he ever did this one. He probably did, but somehow I ended up sitting down and watching this movie because it had come up when I was reading about just horror books and then horror movies, and then reading about horror movies, this movie kept popping up. So I said, you know what, let me give this thing a shot. And I was hooked. I wanted more. I can draw a straight line from those first books that I read, from R.L. Stine to Halloween, and Halloween to everything else that has impacted the way that I write, that I read, that I teach. It really changed things for me. So is it the greatest horror movie of all time? Probably not, but it's definitely one that is very dear. So if we're going to go down memory lane, I figure what better place to start than the movie that kind of jump-started this whole sick obsession with horror movies for me. Also, if you like what you're seeing and you want to help keep the lights on, there's a link to a Patreon down there that you can subscribe to. You'll get access to everything from early releases, behind-the-scenes stuff, polls so you can determine what movies I'm going to watch next, and a bunch of other goodies. The more patrons we get signed up, the more stuff I can actually give to you guys. If we get to enough patrons, there will be giveaways, there will be merch, there will be a bunch of other stuff, a lot more participation. I'll be able to afford better gear so I can put these together a lot better. I'll probably put a picture of what my setup looks like right now. It is not impressive in the least, but that's enough of that. So let's go ahead and just get started. I'm very excited. I don't think I've seen this movie since my daughter was born, and she's 7. Minimum. It might be over 10 years since I've actually sat down to watch this movie. So I'm excited. Let's get to it. I tried learning piano once, and the only thing I remember how to play is the theme song for this movie. I know I'm grinning like an idiot. I know it. I will admit that this movie not only created a lifelong obsession with horror, but it also created a lifelong obsession with Jamie Lee Curtis. She's my pass, actually. You know that thing you do with like your partner that you each get a pass, like a famous person. If you ever get the chance, that's your pass. You get that one for free, right? So when I told her that Jamie Lee Curtis was my pass, she kind of laughed at me like, "Oh, you like older women?" Well, one, it's Jamie Lee Curtis, and then two, I pointed out that her pass was Helen Mirren. Also a good choice, but yeah. God, this song is so simple too. Like it's kind of like the theme for the Joker that was it Hans Zimmer that did The Dark Knight? I mean, that's just a couple of notes too, and this just completely sets the mood, and you don't forget this song. I was about to say I should stop talking, but this is a commentary / review, so this whole thing too. I remember seeing this the first time, just this one uninterrupted shot of somebody. At the same time, looking at it all these years later, is this actually like what Michael's height would have been like? This seems a little tall for him. Like, what was Michael doing outside, actually, now that I think about it? Like, he should have been up in his room somewhere, and then he wandered off to do something else? I mean, it doesn't take away from the scene and then the shock of like, oh, it was the kid. Just something I was wondering. Timed them 1 minute, 15 seconds. That's how long it took.
Never guess where I just came from. I had sex. If I had to describe the feeling, it was the best.
As iconic as this whole sequence is, I would have really redubbed her lines or her delivery. I also like that we don't get to hear Michael like breathing heavy until after he stabs her. Like he was calm up until that point, and that's probably just from exertion at this point that he's panting.
Michael?
Yeah, your kid's just standing there with a bloody knife, and you're looking at him like you just caught him like double dipping into the cookie jar. Michael!
What do I give him when we take him in front of the judge?
Thorazine.
He'll barely be able to sit up.
That's the idea.
I'm not saying that Loomis isn't right, but at the same time, this just feels like either a lawsuit or a malpractice suit just waiting to happen.
Then why are we taking him up to Hardin County if you're just gonna lock?
Because that is the law. Here we are.
That's the law, but drugging up a patient, that's something else. Again, he's got a point. It's just kind of a weird thing to just say like, oh, it's the law. Doesn't realize how lucky she is. She got handled by Michael Myers and survived. Up until they, kill her in H2O. Well, Haddonfield, Illinois looks nothing like California. It's probably the movie that also made me love these sort of synth soundtracks. I absolutely adore the music and the title sequence for Stranger Things, for example. I think part of what just impressed me so much about the movie is that the situation itself is so mundane, and these are just a couple high school kids, babysitters. Myers himself is not the supernatural threat. He's not Freddy, he's not Jason past part 4. He's strong but mortal, even though he's apparently impervious to pain. Is just the mundanity of it all, but it's done really, really well. Oh, the palm trees of Illinois. Just the whole running, not theme, but image of Myers just being in the background in a lot of these early shots. That was also another thing that really creeped me out. I really don't know how I feel about the trope of using a class lecture to impart something of a theme or symbolism or explain something. I don't know, I guess I've just seen it done too many times, but this was one of the first times I remember seeing it. Don't worry, kid. In 15 years, you're going to get played by Paul Rudd. Honestly, if Michael Myers had just punted that bully's head clear over the fence, I would have been fine with it. It's also very interesting to see just that later movies, especially Rob Zombie's versions, really play him up as this hulking brute. And he's tall in this one. Well, he looks tall, but he's not this powerhouse, this wall of meat which also really goes to the idea of like this being such a mundane danger. I mean, especially when he takes his mask off. You know, aside from the scar later that he gets from the coat hanger, he looks like a normal guy, a normal 20-something guy.
I'm his doctor. You must be ready for him. If you don't, it's your funeral.
Well, a lot of other people's funerals.
We have 3 new cheers to learn in the morning. The game is in the afternoon. I have to get my hair done at 5, and the dance is at 8. I'll be totally wiped out. I don't think.
Oh, don't worry. You don't have to worry about any of that.
Hey, isn't that Devon Graham?
Yeah, you know, he kind of looks like Shatner, but really pale. Some of my students see me when I email them a week before classes start that the syllabus is up.
Oh, look.
Look where?
Behind the bush.
I don't see anything.
Because it's behind the bush, Annie. See, even the first time that I saw that was always kind of a weird shot. Like, you're looking right at him and then he disappears.
Mallory, you lost? Why do they do it? Goddamn kids.
Yeah, damn kids taking a 250, 300-pound headstone.
Where's Gregson?
Mr. Riddle is 87.
You can still watch.
It's probably all he can do.
Might have been maybe the 3rd or 4th viewing that I realized that they're listening to Don't Fear the Reaper as the killer is behind them. It's a nice touch.
I always said you'd make a fabulous...
Ben!
Oh, somebody broke into the hardware store. Probably kids.
You blame everything on kids.
Well, now all they took was some Halloween mask, rope, and a couple of knives. Who do you think it was?
Couple of masks. I want to see the deleted scene where Michael Myers is sitting in the Myers house with like a bunch of masks in front of him trying to pick out which is the best one for what he's about to do. Clown, I already did that one. Ghost, might be too cliche later. Albino William Shatner. That's the one. That's my brand. I love these little moments of Michael just right behind them. You know, little moments like that. It just makes it so much creepier.
Sure you could. All you have to do is go up to somebody and say, you want to go to the dance? You could do that. I couldn't.
Yeah, who'd want that? I love that neither of them noticed that beige station wagon that was following them earlier and that they called out to and that stopped and was kind of creepy about it is literally 10 feet behind them. It's like a buffet of victims. 10 points for the Mystery Science Theater fans that identify that movie. Oh man, property value is about to drop in this neighborhood.
You must think me a very sinister doctor.
Well, you are played by Donald Pleasance, so...
Popped up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What do we do?
I do like that we never really get
Tonight.
an explanation of why he does this. I know later movies set up a bunch of different reasons, especially the Rob Zombie one, but I prefer Michael Myers like this, just this blank force. You know, it makes him that much more terrifying. He looks like a man, but he's not a man.
I hate that dog. I'm the only person in the world he doesn't like.
So what is this big...
Oh my god, she looks like such a dork
What
in
would
that
you
shot.
say if I told...
Louis, the boogeyman's outside. Look!
How does Michael Myers know to move out of the way when somebody's like not looking at him anymore? Well, that was very clumsy. You gotta realize, this is Michael's first mass murder. You know, the kid's just kind of starting out. He's been out of the game for 15 years.
What about the jack-o'-lantern?
After the movie.
What about the rest of my comic books?
After the jack-o'-lantern.
What about the boogeyman?
Well, he'll be here soon, don't
There's no
worry.
such thing.
Right.
Well, I'm here tonight. I'm not about to let anything happen to you.
Promise?
Oh yeah, she is gonna earn that babysitter paycheck. And hazard pay.
Jack-
Those are those 70s washing machine and dryers that last for like 50 years. I'm sure there's a couple houses that still have them. Along with that fridge. I've seen that fridge. I think we used to own that fridge.
Yeah, but I've seen you stuck in plenty of other positions.
My parents are gone.
I love it. I love it so much. And I know this is not the only movie that ever does something like this, but I really think it's one of the movies that pulls it off the best. You know, when I give my movies to my students to do movie reviews, I don't give them this one, but some of the ones that are, you know, older films like 70s or before, a lot of them do complain that, oh, it takes a long time to get to anything, or there's a lot of shots where it doesn't feel like anything's happening. But we have to kind of explain to them that that's a style. I mean, that, you know, movies used to take a while. I mean, there's still movies that do this, you know, taking a while to set up shots and things like that. One of the better ones that I can think of right now is probably Arrival. Has these long, drawn-out shots of scenery and things like that. And I think Halloween is part of that tradition of just like setting up this place. You know, you know exactly where these houses are in relation to each other. You know the relationships between these young women, which makes it, I think, a lot scarier when things actually start happening. You know, it's a question of empathy, of being able to put yourself into this situation. And again, I know this is not the only movie that's done stuff like this, and there's movies out there that probably do it better in a lot of respects, but this is just great. It's because he's been popping up everywhere. I remember like looking frantically in every single shot, trying to figure out, is he there? Is he here? Did he sneak into the house? Is he in the car? Another great movie. Might do that one at some point too. I love the 50s sound effects superimposed over him carrying her like that. No alarm bells, the lights are off, no one's home, anything triggering any kind of like...
It's totally dark.
It totally is.
Hey, Annie.
Are you okay?
We're here.
Are you okay, Annie?
Hey, let's look for a note.
I mean, she could be hurt, bleeding, strangled by a homicidal maniac, but, you know, boning.
Everybody's having a good time tonight.
Michael's having a
Alright, you gotta
blast.
text next.
Hi, Laurie. What's up?
The body count.
Oh, I thought she'd be home by now. She went to pick up Paul. She probably stopped off someplace. Have her call me when she gets...
Lindsay is gone for the night.
Hey, now that's wonderful.
That's not what she said. That's not even close to what she said. How? I know you had a couple of beers before you came in here, but how do you get that from the conversation you just had on the phone?
I'll be right back.
And he's dead.
Get dressed.
Is this the first time somebody does that line? I'll be right back. Some movie historian out there want to answer that question? I'm actually legitimately curious. Is this what started the cliche? Something that really amazed me about the movie, even when I saw it on TV and then later actually rented it on VHS, is how very little blood there actually was in this. Like I said in the intro, I had this idea of horror movies being like these gory things, especially movies like this. But just how little blood there actually is in this movie. And even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, too. I mean, there's almost nothing. And yet it still manages to be terrifying and creepy and suspenseful.
Well, did you get my...
This really speaks to just kind of this
What's the matter? Can I
twisted
get your
sadism that he
book?
has just messing with them. I mean, he could have killed them any number of times in the last, like, hour. It's a loud ringer.
Sleep tight, kids.
It's the last good sleep you're ever going to have. This is where all that setup really kind of pays off. Like, we know the geography of this neighborhood a little bit. We know the houses back and forth. We know kind of what the interiors look like. And I don't know, like I know it's slow, especially for like a newer audience that's not used to movies like this. But I think this got done just. Mwah. Bring out your dad.
Linda?
This is the part in 2021 where you just hightail it out of there. I mean, I realize that the slasher genre is not exactly in bloom at this point. This is one of the first ones, but I would think Everything about this looks suspicious. There's the final girl run, finding all the bodies. Again, was this the first movie that did this particular cliche? I mean, Friday the 13th has a pretty famous example in its first movie too, but I am wondering, like, is this the first movie that did it? And this is the shot where that white mask really pays off.
Hello? Hello, help me! Man, please help me! Please! Can't you hear me? Oh, God!
Hank, you hear somebody screaming outside? Yeah, let me check. Yeah, it's somebody screaming outside. Okay, turn the light off. Just checking. Okay, good. You know, a lot of people criticize Laurie here for not just, you know, jamming that sewing needle right into his brain at this point. I would counter argue that she just found 3 of her friends brutally murdered, took a dive down the stairs, and very likely has a concussion. Is it laundry day? They have no clothes in there. The way he gets up, too, is just like, oh, what happened? Michael Myers does not give one solitary F about anything. He just gets up like, back on the grind. God, I love this last little exchange between these two.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
He's completely mortal, but just the aura that he has around him, like throughout the movie, the things in the back, like being in the background, the breathing, all of it, just. And then this still doesn't kill him. Halloween. All right, let's talk about it. So, Halloween. I love this movie. Now, I know that a lot of the love that I have for this film is nostalgia. It was the first movie that introduced me to a lot of these tropes, these cliches. It does them, though, I think, very, very well. There's a reason a lot of people cite this movie as one of, you know, the classics of the genre. You know, definitely started. Well, it didn't start the slasher genre. There's definitely points of contention as to where that one actually started. You know, this movie definitely came out after Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw, several others. So it wasn't the first one that did all these things, but it definitely was done extremely well. John Carpenter's a very, very good director. He's definitely made many other movies that have been very, very well received from from a filmmaking perspective. You know, gave us one of the iconic killers. I guess, I don't know, Michael, Freddy, and Jason. Could we consider them the big 3? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's others. You know, you got Chucky, you got Leatherface, Pinhead. But as far as like classic, iconic horror villains, I think those three are it. And Michael's definitely one of that trinity. Definitely very different from other movies in the franchise. Like I said, it's not a gory movie. You know, a lot of the horror just comes from the atmosphere, the tension, the cinematography, just putting Michael in the background of all these shots, you know. So it's good. It's creepy. I first saw this movie. God, it had to have been before 1998, because I know I was already a fan of this movie when Halloween H2O came out. So it was definitely before that. So I've seen this movie ad nauseum. I haven't seen it, like I said in the intro, for 7 or maybe 10 years. But I still enjoy the hell out of it. I'm debating whether, if I keep going with Halloween, I'm not going to do all the movies, but I am wondering if I should do Halloween, the 2018 version, because the sequel to that, Halloween Kills, I think it's coming out later this year. So, and I do consider, and I'm going to get probably a lot of flack from a lot of the Halloween fans and a lot of horror fans, but because John Carpenter is directly involved in these sequels, I consider Halloween 1978, then 2018, and the two that will follow, I consider those to be the true Halloween timeline. I've seen all the other movies. I've seen, from 2, 3, all the way to, Curse of Michael Myers with Thorn and all these different things. I've seen them, the Rob Zombie ones as well. But for me, because this is John Carpenter kind of coming back and doing the movie he wanted to do, I do consider these movies to be more of the true sequel. So maybe I'll go back and do a commentary to 2018's Halloween, and then hopefully when the new ones come out, I'll do those in year and a half if everything works out and I'm still doing all this then. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on the original Halloween? First time you're watching it, longtime fan, new to the genre. And if you have any suggestions for other classic movies, I've probably seen them already. Maybe I haven't though. There are a few that, the classics that I haven't seen yet. I still haven't seen Phantasm, for one. Several others. So if you have any suggestions for what you'd like me to watch next, put that in the comments down below. Or, hey, check this out. There's actually a link to a Patreon down there. And if you subscribe, you'll be able to vote on polls, and you'll be part of weekly Q&As. You'll have early access to these videos. There's a lot of good stuff coming up, but we need more patrons. I need more resources to put this stuff together, make time. So if you want to contribute, there's the link right down there. Also a link to my letterbox, so if you want to see if I've already seen something, you can check that before you suggest it, or just throw it out there and we'll see what happens. So that wraps it up for Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis, I love you. This is where I first met you. Still love you all these years later. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, and I will see you all on Friday. Friday is going to be a new movie, so we'll see what that is. But if you sign up for Patreon, you'll find out a lot earlier. Later.